obviously, I was talking about the pathos and the empathy. There is um an appeal to a character that's misunderstood. That's a big thing they played on with the recent MonsterVerse. Godzilla certainly misunderstood, in the 2014 film. He's there to protect, he's there to stop these other creatures. He's sort of, Earth's natural defense, against these things. And that was great. Kong on Skull Island is a natural defense as well, even with the Kong versus Godzilla and the inner Earth. I forget what they called it. So we got these natural defenses. And certainly in King of Monsters, where you had Ghidorah, who was the one from space, so an unnatural element on our Earth and in the ecosystem of these giant kaiju, so to speak. So throwing off the the natural behaviors of Rodan and all of these beings, and Godzilla was there to kind of right that system, and keep everybody in check. And wonderful character like Mothra there to to sort of be part of the ecosystem that can heal Godzilla and help him through and everything. So, cool systems in place, but they're misunderstood by man. Obviously, that's the classic monster movie, the misunderstood monster. It's the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame, yeah, or even Phantom of the Opera, to some respect, So it's that kind of movie where the monster's misunderstood. They do have a good heart, but they're judged unfairly, by the way they look and some things and whatnot. So it's that appeal too. And I know a lot of people have talked. I've talked to a lot of people who are Godzilla fans in particular, and they're just really drawn to this or that. It was Alec Purdue. He's not here tonight, but he's here a lot of times. He was telling me about one of the films in which Godzilla gets a child, or Godzilla serves as a father figure. I can't remember. He'll hate me for bringing this up and not getting it right, but I can't remember if it was one where Godzilla has like a child Godzilla, or if Godzilla is like kind of serving as almost a father figure for a human child. I forgot what it was, but and he was saying that he kind of really responded to that, to Godzilla as a father figure, just in the recontextualization of the mythos like that, and that's great, So there is that misunderstood son of Godzilla. Thank you. Freaking weebs. Big boy. 1967, Son of Godzilla. Thank you for the clarification, though. So yeah, there's that appeal too. I think there's also a third appeal of kaiju, which is, and I think we saw this, and maybe it's evident in some of the older films too, but I think we really did see it in the Godzilla King of Monsters movie. Let me get this super chat though before I go into that, because again, I'm gonna keep talking and I'll go off and forget all these chats. Studio Super said, I do like the Kong movies in where instead of the monster being on human turf, the humans are on the monster's turf. There's always this uneasiness because you never know what is going to pop out. Yeah, I mean that's the original King Kong, going to Skull Island. That's the and I'm sure they did it in a lot of other films too. It's the land of the lost kind of thing, right? So yeah, that's an element there too. And I think that kind of plays into what I'm about to say, because I don't think it's a coincidence that Godzilla and King Kong movies are really big in the mass market public sphere right now. I don't think it's a coincidence at all, because I think part of the appeal of these kaiju films is the sense that we've gone too far as man, and that we need to break down our society. Throughout the 20th century, there's always been these little movements of wanting to go back to basics. I always think of the song, the Tears for Fears song, Break It Down, from the 90s. Freaking love that song. We need to break things down. We're going too far. We're getting away from the human soul, whether it's science or technology, the good things, but also too, we get so far, and we talk about it on this channel, what TikTok has done to people's attention spans and all of this kind of stuff. And I think there is this general desire to just kind of break things down again and get back to basics. And if you had an instance where there was giant monsters running around, I mean, um, they sort of make it work in the movies, but yeah, you'd have to really shift your perspective. You'd have to get off the freaking internet and look outside, for crying out loud, and really live in a different way and kind of get back to basics, get back to really what matters, get back to nature, if you want to think about it like that, in that respect. And there's a lot of movements about that. And I think these giant monsters would be kind of forcing our hand as human beings to put our phones down and look around us in the real world and worry about survival, even if it's just on that basic level. And I don't think it's a mistake or a coincidence at all that the MonsterVerse, in the teens, that's when it's kind of risen to how popular it is now. And think about all the things that have happened over the last 10 years. Like I said, the Me Too movement, big thing. COVID, the BLM movement, the the incredibly cantankerous elections back and forth on different sides, and TikTok generation growing up. I mean, I think it's a reflection of the tensions and to some degree. This is just one aspect of the kaiju appeal, I think. So I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking through the different levels of the appeal of them. And everybody's got their own. I mean, I know you guys have been talking about it. You've got your own story of why it's, what's drawn you to the movies, or when you first, saw them and everything like that. And that's great. I mean, that's great. I think that's awesome. I know Big Al just loves a big monster. I don't think Big Al's ever thought this through in terms of the appeal. Because I think I've asked him before, like, well, what is it about you that you like, just like a big monster? I've been with him watching trailers or something like that before. And I think when he first watched the Godzilla versus Kong trailer, I think we were watching it together on a stream or something like that. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And Al's response is, "Arr, arr, arr, arr." It's just like Primal Man, that kind of thing. And that is the other aspect, which kind of ties into Rampage I've got going on in the background, is that it is fun to kind of live vicariously through the creatures too. No, in real world, if you really asked us, we wouldn't want to go cause a bunch of damage to people or institutions or buildings, however much we might, at least we shouldn't really want to do that. But it is kind of fun to think about it. I remember playing Rampage and the arcade games and whatnot, or on Nintendo, growing up. And it's just like, it's so much fun just in these little pixelated world to be a big wolf or monkey or gator or whatever, and just, just tear down the buildings, and you see people try and run and escape, and you grab them and eat them. It's just, I mean, I don't think I'd like to play the game if it was done in today's technology with the realism and all of that, but it was just fun. It was that kind of, a catharsis, to live vicariously through these creatures in some way. I see Nathaniel Lozball is posting those comments. So let me get to these here because I don't want to miss them. But he said, yeah, he was talking about the director of the Godzilla movie, the first one. He said, monsters are tragic beings. And this is a quote you got from the director. Monsters are tragic beings. They are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They are not evil by choice. That's their tragedy. They do not attack people because they want to, but because their size and strength. Mankind has no other choice but to defend himself. After several stories such as this, people end up having a kind of affection for the monsters. They end up caring about them. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, I'm glad you thank you for sharing that. It was really great just to hear that straight from the director himself. But that's what we were saying, how, we can see the misunderstood, and it's interesting that he talked about in his quote, just literally the size, because I was just watching a video the other night about Dan Brock, who was the guy that played Hoss in the old Bonanza series, that was on television for so long. And he was just a great actor, a really great, warm guy. Everybody loved him who knew him. Everybody loved the character of Hoss on Bonanza, when that was on in the day. But he was a big guy. I mean, a really big guy. And it was talking about how he'd always been a big baby. He'd been a big kid throughout. And he was in the military for a while, and it took them like so many weeks just to get custom boots that actually fit him, and not that he was like Andre the Giant or anything, but he was a big guy. And he would even say the difficulties of being, a bit, you have to be careful sitting in chairs, because you can wreck a chair, when you're that big. Um, and yeah, so there is a very real aspect of some people just walking around daily life who, whether it's physical size or strength or something like that, or even a deformity or disability, even um, people who are different and maybe misunderstood, and that's something we're getting better about as a culture. It was a funny story. My daughter, I've mentioned before, Alyssa, she's on the autistic spectrum, and she's pretty severe. I mean, she's 12, but she's developmentally much younger. And just if you watch her, if you just didn't know her, you were ways away in the crowd, you could watch her and you could see her mannerisms after a moment or two, and you'd realize she wasn't neurotypical. So I had her in, and she loves amusement parks, loves theme parks, loves roller coasters. She's fearless. She can't be scared, and the more extreme the ride, the better. She loves it. So Sound Engraver and I will take her, and I ride the rides with her because I love that kind of stuff too. Sound Engraver's like, no, I'll hold the bags. But I was in line with her for a roller coaster with Alyssa, and it was one of her favorite rides, and she was really excited. So she was stemming and flapping her hands and kind of making noises and stuff, just excited about it. And there was a girl in the line next to us who was, I don't know, anywhere from like 16 to 23. It's got kind of age, that can be anything. But she kind of backed up when Alyssa made that sound. And then she looked up at me and she said, "What's her disability?" And I thought, who asked that? Who goes around asking? That's kind of a bold, almost kind of a rude question, right? But I was like, well, whatever, So I just went, oh, she's on the autistic spectrum. And the girl's eyes got really big, and she said, oh, "Me too. That's what I've got." So it made sense that she wouldn't think anything of asking that question. And obviously, she was way more high functioning than Alyssa because she was able to walk around and be at the park there, away from her group or whatever for a while or something. But yeah, so we're becoming a little bit more aware of that. And there's but yeah, whether it's height, whether it's size, whether it's physical disabilities or cognitive disabilities or whatever, I think, yeah, that's probably a big draw and a big appeal of the creatures as well.